Okay, we're going to be talking about 3 different ways of doing an invisible cast on. One is over the tail of the working yarn, one will be over waste yarn, and the third will be over a cable needle. These are all very similar techniques, just slightly different. So we're going to start by using the tail of the working yarn. So we're going to make a slip knot and put it on the needle. So we have our working yarn is going to be coming over our finger, and we have a long tail that's going to be coming over the thumb. And this is similar to long tail cast on in how you start with holding the yarn, but the motions are different. We're going to start by going under the thumb yarn and picking up a needle, picking up a stitch with the finger yarn. Then we pick up another stitch with the finger yarn. Then we go underneath the thumb yarn and pick up a finger stitch. The thumb yarn doesn't do anything, it's just sitting there. We're going over the top of it to get a stitch, like this, and then we go under it and over the top of the finger thread and bring it under and bring it up. So you can see the waste yarn or the tail is just traveling right underneath the stitches there. See it? It's not actually involved in any of the stitches. It's just sitting there at the bottom. Now this can be left in the work, or it can be removed later to reveal live stitches. Another way of doing the same thing is by doing the same technique, only using waste yarn. And in that case, we're going to put some waste yarn here. We'll tie a slip knot with the working yarn and the waste yarn. And the waste yarn is going to be the gray, so it's going to go over the thumb. The working yarn is the red. We're going to go and we're going to pick up a stitch of the red yarn from under the gray and a stitch from the top. A stitch from under and a stitch from the top. Stitch from under, stitch from the top, stitch from under. Now the key is to keep that gray thread just along the bottom of the needle. Don't let it start twisting around the needle. But you can see how it's going underneath there. See that? So it would just stay in place till you're done with your knitting, and then you would slip that out and slide in a knitting needle. Another way, which is really cool, and my favorite way, and I use this all the time in place of waste yarn, is to use, this is another, see I have 2 knitting needles here, this is the second knitting needle. So we're going to take our working yarn and we'll make a slip knot, and we put the slip knot on the other needle, not the working needle. This is the other needle. We're just going to use the cable. So now we have the slip knot on the cable. See, it's just loose there. That is not the knitting needle that I'm knitting with, it's just a cable. So we have the slip knot, and then we're going to hold the cable like we would the waste yarn. See, the cable's in my hand where the waste yarn was, and the working yarn's over my finger. So we're going to start out, we're going to pick up a piece of the yarn around the knitting needle, that's the first stitch, then we go underneath the cable, pick up another stitch. We now have 2. Pick up 1 back here, go under, pick up 3, go under, pick up 4, etc. This is really a great technique because the cable won't twist around the other needle. It always stays right along there on the bottom. And you would just do your knitting. You would do your knitting straight up from here, and then when you're ready to come back and return to these stitches to knit in the opposite direction to add your edging or whatever you're going to do, your stitches are already on the needle. You would just simply turn it around, slide that needle into place, and now all the stitches are on that needle, and you would start knitting in the opposite direction.